Benjamin Netanyahu, he made a couple of statements. Benjamin Netanyahu, he firstly made a statement saying that we are in the middle of an existential war, a difficult existential war, and we are paying heavy prices. So Netanyahu is confirming yet again that they are in an existential war, meaning, well, for those of you who always, say, how can you say it's an existential threat or that Israel is about to be destroyed? Well, why else would the prime minister say we're in existential war? They know they can be doomed, or that they will be at some point done as a state. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu says we're in an existential war, and the top leading figures in Israel say we are in an existential war. That's not a light thing to say in Israel. We are in an existential war. If your top figure in the state says we are in the middle of an existential war, this indicates that there's an opportunity for this state to no longer exist. Very simple. So he said that, but he's also trying to flex muscles at the same time. He wants to push for his delusions. He's saying that, and he apparently made a visit to Gaza with his newly appointed genocide minister, Israel Katz. They visited Gaza, and this came as a flash report in Israel, saying that after saying that dozens would soon be released from captivity, again, Netanyahu saying that soon many will be released, the prime minister visited the Netzarim axis in Gaza. Clearly on the coastal line, that's assuming he is in Gaza, because everything needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. Why? Because the Netzarim axis has a base in the east, in the center, and in the western part near the coast. Whoever finds a hostage for us will receive $5 million and a way out. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Israel Katz, Chief of Staff Major General Herzi Halevi, and Shin Bet Chief Ronen Bar visited the Netzarim corridor in the Gaza Strip today. Netanyahu and Katz received a regional overview from Division 99 Commander Yoav Brunner and Major General of the Southern Yaron Command Finkelman from one of the vantage points in the corridor. Later, they held a dialogue with the commanders of the reserve brigades on the coast of Gaza, saying, Hamas will not rule Gaza. We are eliminating its military capabilities in a very impressive way. We are moving to its governmental capabilities, and the hand is still tilted. Hamas will not be in Gaza. It appears to be that Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, you will be the one remaining inside the occupied territories, and the Palestinian people will be remaining there. This is what looks like it's happening. And he also added, we are also making an effort from this place and everywhere to locate our abductees and return them. You've been trying to locate them for over a year. What are you talking about? You've been saying that you're trying to eliminate Hamas for over a year. What are you doing? What kind of a joke is this? You said 1 year ago that you already started to target Hamas' military capabilities and that you won't stop until you eliminate them. What do you mean you haven't done with the job yet? What a failed army, what a failed state, what a failed campaign, what incompetence, what weakness is this? What kind of a failed entity are you? Committing crimes against the innocent people and destroying everything and not being able to do anything against the people who you're claiming you're fighting, Hamas? That's a humiliation. That's a massive failure. And then he continued, we will continue to do this, to get them all, the living and everything. I want to say that those who are holding our abductees, whoever dares to harm our abductees, his blood is in his head. We will pursue you and we will get you. The Prime Minister again addressed those holding the hostages and offered them money and a safe exit from the Strip. I also say to those who want to get out of this maze, whoever brings us a kidnapped will find a safe way. He and his family to get out. We will also give a reward of $5 million for each kidnapper. Choose, the choice is yours, but the result will be the same result. I mean, delusions. This man is totally delusional. Firstly, like I said, 1 year into it, you're still saying that you are targeting Hamas's military capabilities and you're reaching their governmental capabilities, indicating that you haven't even touched their governmental capabilities because they are still operational in Gaza. What kind of a massive failure is that? Now, not only that he is unable to defeat Hamas and the Palestinian resistance, because it's not just Hamas or its armed wing fighting Israel, he is unable to stop them from a governmental side and from their civilian operating side, civil services in Gaza. And that was very evident from two recent reports that came about the theft of the aid and Hamas's operation against the thieves operating with Israel. And before I get into the report, Hamas started an operation 2 days ago against all of the thieves operating with Israel when it comes to aid. And why is that happening? I'll give you a bit of a background. Israel tried to instill certain figures, sometimes with the help of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, when they smuggled in through Egypt. Somehow Egypt said they didn't know. Forces that belong to Majid Faraj, the head of the Palestinian intelligence in the West Bank, basically the Zionist agents in the West Bank, to go into Gaza and wreak havoc and take control over the aid and whatever goes in. Israel also tried to speak with the tribes, some of the tribe leaders in Gaza, and they later released a statement saying that we will not be operating hand in hand with the occupation. We only recognize the only legitimate sovereign and elected government, which is the Hamas government. Then they tried to revive a certain movement called Jayshul Islam, or the Army of Islam. Yes, Israel deals with a movement calling itself the Army of Islam, to conduct terror attacks. That's the same movement that kidnapped Alan Johnston, the BBC reporter, who Hamas later on released. Again, yeah, might be new news for you or some of you. But it didn't work with them. It did not work with them because Hamas still has a stronghold in Gaza. Then they clearly had a way of trying to get to some of the criminals in Gaza. So there have been people who have been conducting criminal activities previously in Gaza. Israel, of course, knows them. Money motivated, greed at the expense of the suffering of the Palestinian people. And Israel tried to lure them with money and with some weapons in some cases. Israel delivers the aid from the two main checkpoints in Gaza, and they're allowing this aid to reach these criminal gangs. But now Hamas started the operation. And what do? These gangs, they steal the aid, actually, and they start selling it at very high prices, not allowing it to reach either the authorities in Gaza, which is the Hamas government, to distribute it to the population, or any aid organizations. Why? Because Israel is targeting both Hamas and the aid organizations and anyone trying to get aid to the actual people, but they want this situation to be tense around Gaza. So we have an operation from the Interior Ministry inside of Gaza, and it's not a joke, as in Hamas, they're not playing around with the people stealing the aid. And we had one report here on a website, it's called Arabi 21, saying the Ministry of Interior in Gaza carries out security operation against gangs looting aid. And they said sources in the Ministry of Interior in Gaza Strip revealed on Monday a security operation carried out by the security services in cooperation with tribal communities against aid-looting gangs under the cover of the Israeli occupation. So clearly they're fully functioning, some of them, as in the security forces inside of Gaza, although we have Israeli occupation in many parts, and Israel's committing all of these crimes. The same sources stated that more than 28 truck thieves were killed as a result of the security operation, according to Al-Aqsa TV. The sources added that today's operation will not be the last, and it's the beginning of a comprehensive security operation that has been planned for a long time and will expand to include all those involved in stealing aid trucks. stressing that the security services will punish with an iron fist anyone involved in helping these thieves' gangs. The security campaign does not target specific clans, but rather aims to eliminate the phenomenon of truck theft, which has greatly affected society and caused signs of famine in the southern Gaza Strip, noting that the security services are proud of the Palestinian clans of East Rafah, some of which their members being drawn into theft plans. I'm not sure if that was a mistranslation here. Into theft plans will not harm the history of these families who have provided hundreds of resistance martyrs, or they are, as in certain clans targeting these, or tribes targeting the thieves. And they also indicated that they are operating directly from the Israeli Shin Bet. They are directly working with Israel. So clearly Israel has found certain people to hand aid to in Gaza. And who are they? Criminal gangs, clearly. Why? Because to them, they want to create this crisis in Gaza when it comes to food, when it comes to aid, and they don't want it to reach the people, but show that they are allowing aid in. So what do? They allow very limited numbers of aid in. They hand it to criminal gangs who exploit the population and start reselling it to the population at ridiculous prices. I'm talking like a bag of wheat or flour will cost you $150. You're talking about people with hardly anything to eat. So clearly this operation is being targeted now by the Hamas forces inside of Gaza, and it's bothering Israel, of course. The question is, will they now reduce the already limited amounts that they get in from Gaza or not? We already passed the ultimatum that the United States has given Israel. Well, this, I mean, I'm not sure what to call it, a fake ultimatum, or what is it exactly? It expired last week, but ever since then we're hearing about more aid going in. But again, you're seeing the situation when it comes to the aid, and these gangs, Israel handing it to these gangs, stealing the actual aid. But clearly Hamas in Gaza are trying to take every measure possible when it comes to targeting those thieves, taking them down, and allowing the aid to go into Gaza. Which leads me to the final thing, is two related things that I wanted to talk to you about. We have Ukraine beginning to use the ATACMS missiles that have been provided to them by Joe Biden. Joe Biden, just a few days back, authorized the delivery of ballistic missiles to Ukraine, and he's allowing them to use them against Russia in what is considered to be a very large escalation when it comes to the war between Russia and Ukraine. After taking permission from the West, Ukraine launches its first ATACMS missiles on Bryansk. So, for those of you who, or for the people who are saying like, well, where they've just authorized them, they might consider, they might not use them, whatever. No, they started using them immediately. Clearly, genocide supporting Zelensky, because he supports the genocide against the Palestinian people. For those of you who don't know, he supports Israel, and he condemns the Palestinian side. Man, look at how much of a hypocrite he is. He's claiming that he's fighting an occupation, but he supports Israel and he condemns the Palestinian resistance. And he even asks Israel to increase the aid or give aid to Ukraine. He's clearly trying to max out on the period of Joe Biden in the White House up until Donald Trump comes, because there are many indications that Donald Trump will, in the case of Ukraine, not in the case of Israel, actually take certain concrete measures when it comes to stopping the war, especially with the fact that you've had reports, again, some of them are not, very concrete, but we've had them from before 2016, that Russia holds sensitive information about Donald Trump, and therefore, he needs to play ball with them. The Russian Defense Ministry said Ukrainian forces attacked the facility in Russia's border province of Bryansk with 6 US-made ATACMS missiles last night. The Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement on Tuesday that the Ukrainian army launched an attack at 3:25 a.m. last night in a facility in Bryansk with 6 ballistic missiles, which according to confirmed data are US-made tactical operations missiles. They indicated that the crews of the S-400 and Pantsir air defense systems shot down 5 missiles and damaged the 6th, whose debris fell on a technical area of a military facility in the Bryansk region, which led to a fire that was immediately extinguished without any casualties or destruction. It is worth noting that the New York Times reported last Sunday, quoting unnamed U.S. administration representatives, that U.S. President Joe Biden had allowed Ukraine for the first time to use long-range U.S. missiles to bomb deep inside Russian territory. And now they are proving it. Indeed, they have received these missiles, and now they are using them again to use all of this period remaining to attack Russia with increased capabilities. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov noted that Washington's decision means a qualitative new wave of attention and transition to a new situation in terms of U.S. involvement in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian conflict. President Vladimir Putin has formulated Russia's position very clearly and unambiguously regarding decisions to strike with long-range weapons on its territory, and the collective West has received those signals. What are those signals? Those signals are that Putin now is introducing, or has already introduced, a new doctrine when it comes to Russian nuclear weapons. Meaning, they still use them for defensive measures. It's not like they want to attack or indeed have it as a doctrine to start using nuclear weapons as attack means, but that will give them more leniency when it comes to their defensive capabilities in terms of what they consider to be an enemy hostile attack and what would justify a nuclear doctrine. And this is very important. And this is another article that I wanted to share with you, because you're talking about nuclear weapons. I mean, weapons that can destroy the world many times. Russia has over 6,000 warheads of nuclear weapons, likewise with the US, and you have so many other nuclear countries. And yet they're taking all of these, the United States establishment and its proxies and Western countries are taking this hostile approach towards Russia. Funny enough, although Russia is a nuclear country that has the capacity to use nuclear weapons, and many consider to have been so restrained so far with its war in Ukraine, yet they are so flexible with a genocidal little entity called Israel. The levels of hypocrisy are unbelievable. But I wanted to share this also with you. Putin approves updated Russian nuclear doctrine. The presidential decree states that in order to improve Russian state policy in the field of nuclear deterrence, it is decided to adopt the document Fundamentals of the State Policy of the Russian Federation in the field of nuclear deterrence. The decree will enter force from the date of its signing today, November 19th. The updated Russian nuclear doctrine confirms that the state's policy in the field of nuclear deterrence is defensive in nature, that Russia is making all necessary efforts to reduce the nuclear threat, and that it views nuclear weapons as a means of deterrence and considers their use a last resort measure. And here are the details. The following are the most important provisions of the Russian nuclear doctrine. Deterring a potential enemy from attacking Russia and its allies is one of the government's top priorities, not only Russia, but its allies as well. Aggression against Russia and its allies by a non-nuclear state with the support of a nuclear state would be considered a joint attack, meaning that the non-nuclear state would be considered as if it has nuclear bombs. Therefore, it would increase the risk when it comes to Russia, allowing it to potentially use nuclear bombs if they need to defend themselves. Russia's willingness and determination to use nuclear weapons will ensure nuclear deterrence. Russia can use nuclear weapons in the event of a serious threat to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of itself and Belarus. One of the conditions for using nuclear weapons is launching ballistic missiles at Russia, meaning now they can use nuclear bombs. That's the most important one. One of the conditions of using nuclear weapons is launching ballistic missiles at Russia. That means what Zelensky has done now can justify the use of nuclear bombs. Providing territory and resources for aggression against Russia is the basis for using nuclear deterrence against such a state. Aggression by any state of the military alliance against Russia or its allies shall be considered aggression by this alliance as a whole. Again, justifying not only potential attacks in Ukraine, but attacks in other territories that are supporting Ukraine. Russia reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in response to the use of weapons of mass destruction against it and its allies. The president of Russia is one who makes the decision to use nuclear weapons and can, if necessary, inform other states and international organizations about Russia's readiness to use them, its decision taken in this regard, as well as the fact of using these weapons. So they're being very open about it. It's like Putin is going to declare, or you're probably going to give international organizations a warning that we are about or will, or after they have already use nuclear weapons. Russia exercises nuclear deterrence against a potential adversary, a concept that includes states, blocs, and alliances that consider Russia an adversary. The state policy on nuclear deterrence is aimed at maintaining the potential of nuclear forces at a level sufficient for nuclear deterrence, maintaining uncertainty for a potential adversary regarding the extent and location of nuclear weapons. Use is a principle of nuclear deterrence. Nuclear deterrence aims to ensure that a potential adversary realizes the inevitability of retaliation in the event of aggression against Russia. State policy in the field of nuclear deterrence in military conflict ensures the cessation of hostilities on terms acceptable by Russia. Maintaining constant readiness of the part of the nuclear deterrence forces designated for use is one of the principles for Russian nuclear deterrence. The deployment of missile defense systems in space by the enemy poses a threat that nuclear deterrence is used to neutralize. Centralization of control over nuclear forces, including those located outside Russian territory, is one of the principles of nuclear deterrence. Last September, Putin instructed the Russian Security Council to adapt its nuclear deterrence policy to new changes in the military and political situation and propose a number of clarifications regarding the conditions for Russia's use of nuclear weapons. So, we're basically closer to the use of nuclear weapons. We are basically much closer to the use of nuclear weapons, especially with the fact that the new doctrine of Russia's use of nuclear weapons includes the use of ballistic missiles against its territories, meaning they've already opened the path towards using nuclear weapons. This is what it blatantly states. Russia's blatantly now saying, we are in a position to use. We have already, from our perspective, justified the use of nuclear weapons against other countries that are escalating against us. Now, the United States knew that this was potentially coming alongside the genocide-supporting allies of the United States in the form of the NATO. And that's why they delayed the delivery of these ballistic missiles to Russia. How else can you explain that? If the ballistic missiles wouldn't have changed the equation when it comes to Russia, why didn't they do that before? They're doing it now, and they know the risk. They still approve the use of these ballistic missiles against Russia, although they knew something like that was coming. Again, all of this recklessness and all of this increased escalation is primarily caused by the United States establishment and NATO. NATO, that's supposed to be, or was intended to be, at least by the declarations, a defensive organization, has proven time after time that it's a soft, well, not a soft power really, but a front of the United States empire in Europe, implementing the ambitions of the United States militaristic oligarchy, spreading and its ambitions to control Russia as a state. Control Russia because they want the oil, they want the gas, they want the Russian state. It's not like they are all of a sudden caring so much for the lives of the Ukrainian people. No one buys that nonsense. Anyone who knows what the United States foreign policy is about, alongside its genocidal establishments and the NATO, knows these facts. And a very big proof of that is the fact that these powers support a genocide entity committing far, far worse crimes than any country has done in recent years, by the way. I mean, the levels of innocent people, innocent women, innocent children that Israel has killed in 1 year in Gaza surpasses global conflicts when it comes to children under 18 in the past 4 years. Yet Western powers act like they're blind. And they are allowing this comedian genocide supporting puppet Zelensky from increasing the tensions with Russia. So if we reach a stage where we actually do have back and forth nuclear attacks, you know exactly who to blame.